I know that this decision to either stay remote or to go back to the office is a really tough one for most companies. So I'm going to try to break down a couple of things that you could think about as you're trying to make that decision with your leadership team. So number one is clearly safety from the virus. So you need to make sure that your workplace is able to be transitioned to a place that's safe for the virus. Having people work 6 feet apart from one another. How do you do that when you have cubes right next to each other? Can you do that? Do you have offices that have doors? Do you have a workspace that is one long table where 12 people work? These are the things that you need to think about in how do I reorganize my office space? How do I reorganize who comes in and who doesn't come in? Maybe half come in one day and half come in the other to make sure that it's a safe environment. Because the first thing you need to do is make sure that those employees know that you have done everything you can to make them feel safe. And that's the number one thing that has to happen if you want them to come back. And then number two, you need to make sure that you need to come back. And so why would you need to come back right now? Well, one, the big one that we're finding right now is employee engagement and productivity. We're finding that if people were working 100% remotely, they may be disengaged, right? Because we haven't learned as managers how to lead people very well from a 100% remote standpoint. Remember, this all got thrust on us and we never got to have a lot of training and development for our managers. And so we probably aren't great at communication skills right now, over communicating to people who are working from home. We may not be great at facilitating tons of Zoom meetings and other meetings to make sure that those people feel totally connected. And so what we're finding is that even the best managers are seeing employee engagement and employee productivity down in 100% remote workforces. So that may be probably your biggest clue to come back into the office, at least part-time, because we want to make sure that they feel engaged and productive, and sometimes that is almost impossible. And number three, I think it's really important for us to think about, do those employees want to come back? There are some studies that suggest 45% of people want to be remote full-time, or 85% of people want some of their jobs to be remote. And so you just really need to gauge what is happening at your workforce. So sometimes you will be surprised, in many of our employees actually want to come back on site. They are dying to work alongside their other employees and be part of a workforce again. Or maybe your workforce has people that are mostly in the upper age group, or that they may be compromised in some way, immunocompromised. And so they may not be wanting to get back to work right now. Again, you probably need to take a gauge of how your employees feel about it. Is it something they really want to do, that they're asking you every day, can I come back? Or is it something like, oh, I don't want to come back until well after there's a vaccine? You know, how is that, how are your employees feeling? And it's really important to know, because different companies are feeling different things. So really important to know if you can keep the office safe. Also important to know how employee engagement and productivity is going. And then third, really knowing what your employees want, right? Do they even want to come back? And again, all of those things together make up what you should do. Now, I know that as you're sitting there, you're thinking, if we go 100% remote and we get rid of our office space, it's such a lower cost to us. And that may be the case, and you guys may make a decision to do that. But what I'd like for you to do is think about that as part of your talent strategy. Don't just do it as a cost-saving measure, because when you go 100% remote forever, it really needs to be a part of a long-term talent strategy, not just a knee-jerk reaction to what just happened. Because you will find that even though there's less cost on the front end, because you're not having to pay for their office space and those kind of things, you will see some costs in the back end with people leaving, because it's really tough to retain employees in a 100% virtual in a virtual system, as well as maybe that those employees might feel that as they're trying to onboard with you, that it's not a fun place to be, and so you might not even be able to acquire the best talent if you're 100% remote. Or your type of business and your industry may be perfect for 100% remote work. But those are all the things that you need to think about. And again, just like anything we talk about in human resources, it is a part of a long-term strategy. Just like you would have a marketing strategy, that maybe your social media was part of your marketing strategy. Whether you work remote or go on site, that's part of your long-term talent strategy. So you need to come up with a plan and then work the plan and then communicate it exceptionally well to your employees so they feel safe, they feel like their voices are heard, and they feel 100% engaged with your company.